Daniel does not come to Lisa yelling. He does not arrive looking like a man desperate to win her back. He does something much more effective. He stays calm, looks her directly in the face, and tells her, "You don't have to believe me, but you need to see what I found." And then he drops the sentence Lisa was absolutely not prepared to hear. Tai may already have a wife in Nigeria. Now, Lisa's first instinct is not heartbreak. It is anger, because look at this from her side. She finally believes she is building something new with Tai, and suddenly Daniel, the man with history, emotions, and plenty of reasons to dislike this relationship, shows up with information that could destroy everything. But here is where this gets uncomfortable. Daniel did not come with just an opinion. He came with enough information to make Lisa start questioning details she had already noticed, but never connected. And once that happens, the real problem is no longer just, does Tai have a wife? The bigger questions become harder. Why did Lisa apparently know nothing about this woman? Why does Tai's timeline suddenly become difficult to explain? Why was communication with this woman apparently still happening? Why does Tai seem more interested in explaining the context than giving Lisa a simple answer? And most importantly, if this situation is innocent, why did Lisa have to hear about it from Daniel? Because this story is not really about one woman in Nigeria. It is about who controlled the information. And once Lisa realizes she may have been building a relationship using only the version of Tai's past that Tai allowed her to see, everything changes. Lisa looks at Daniel like she already knows what his motive is. Jealousy. That is the easiest explanation. Daniel still cares about her. Daniel does not trust Tai. Daniel has his own history with Lisa. So, naturally, she questions him before she questions the relationship. And honestly, she should. If your ex walks into your life and tells you the person you are dating has a secret spouse, you should not immediately accept that as fact just because they sound confident. The messenger matters. But Daniel makes a smart move. He does not say, "Trust me." He basically says the opposite. "Don't trust me. Look at what I brought." And that immediately changes the conversation. Because now Daniel's motivation and Daniel's information become two separate issues. That distinction is important. Daniel can still have feelings for Lisa and be telling the truth. He can dislike Tai and still uncover something Lisa needs to know. He can genuinely want to protect her while also feeling some satisfaction that Tai may not be exactly who Lisa believed he was. People are complicated like that. The mistake would be assuming Daniel's jealousy automatically makes every piece of information false. But the opposite mistake would be turning Daniel into a hero simply because part of what he found looks convincing. Lisa seems to understand both sides. She does not suddenly trust Daniel. She simply stops dismissing him. And that is enough to put Tai in trouble. Because Daniel's accusation is landing on top of behavior Lisa has already found strange. Tai's communication has not always been consistent. There are certain times when calls seem easier than others. There are moments when he becomes unavailable without much explanation. There are questions about where he is, who is around him, or what is happening at home that never seem to get fully answered. By themselves, those things mean almost nothing. Someone missing a video call does not mean they have a hidden wife. Someone being vague about their house does not prove a secret marriage. Someone disappearing for a few hours can mean they were busy. But suspicion does something very powerful once you are given a possible explanation. It reorganizes your memories. Before Daniel says, "wife," all of those strange moments are separate. After Daniel says, "wife," Lisa starts putting them together. Now that one night Tai avoided a video call feels different. That vague answer about who was around feels different. That moment when Lisa wanted to see more of his home and Tai changed the subject feels different. Nothing has technically changed about those memories. What changed is the context. And once Lisa gets that new context, trust starts cracking before Daniel has even proven the biggest allegation. That is what people underestimate about secrecy. You do not need to prove the worst possible version for the relationship to become unstable. Sometimes all you need to prove is that the version your partner gave you is incomplete. Daniel says he never planned to investigate Tai. According to him, something reached him through a person connected to Tai's circle. At first, he did not want to touch it. And that actually makes sense. Daniel knows exactly how he would look if he ran to Lisa with a rumor. Jealous, bitter, still emotionally attached, trying to sabotage her relationship. So he says he waited. Then another detail surfaced. Then another one. And eventually he decided there was enough there that Lisa deserved to see it. Now this is where Daniel becomes interesting. Because why was he looking deeper? Was it concern? Was it jealousy? Was it curiosity? Was he secretly hoping Tai would turn out to be exactly the kind of man Daniel believed he was? Probably some combination of those things. That is why I would not reduce Daniel to either the jealous ex or the hero who saved Lisa. Reality is usually messy. You can have a good reason to expose something and still have selfish emotions attached to it. And some viewers would absolutely question Daniel here. A section of the audience would say, if you are truly over Lisa, why are you this involved in researching Tai? That is fair. But another section would say, if Daniel found something serious and stayed quiet, people would criticize him for that too. Also fair. And that is why Lisa's reaction is actually stronger when she refuses to automatically choose Daniel's side. She wants the information, not Daniel's interpretation of it. The first thing he shows her appears to connect Tai to another woman. Maybe it is an older social media post. Maybe a family celebration. Maybe a picture where the language in the comments sounds much more serious than old girlfriend. Lisa looks at it and immediately says, that could be an ex. And she is right. A picture does not prove a current marriage. An old family photo does not prove two people are still together. Even someone calling another person wife online does not automatically tell you what their legal status is today. What makes Daniel's position stronger is that he does not overplay that evidence. He agrees with Lisa. He tells her the picture alone is not the reason he came. There is more. And that is where the timeline starts causing problems. Tai gave Lisa one version of when his previous relationship ended. But the dates Daniel has found do not seem to fit comfortably inside that story. Now this matters much more. Because the moment someone's timeline starts changing, the conversation moves from emotion to verification. Lisa stops asking, why is Daniel doing this? She starts asking, when exactly did Tai tell me this ended? That is the moment you can feel the relationship shift. She is no longer listening to Tai's story as a partner. She is auditing it. And once you become an auditor in your own relationship, trust is already in serious trouble. You start remembering dates. You start checking old messages. You think about when certain photos were posted. You remember the nights something felt off. You start asking why one detail was never mentioned. And suddenly one explanation is not enough anymore. Because every answer creates another question. Lisa does not want to sit there building a case against Tai without giving him a chance to respond. So she calls him. And she does not waste time. Have you ever been married? Simple question. And this is where Tai creates a problem for himself before he even gives an answer. He pauses. Then he asks why Lisa is asking. That response is almost always going to make people more suspicious. Because when someone asks you a direct factual question and your first reaction is to figure out what they already know, it can sound like you're calculating how much truth you need to give them. Lisa does not let him redirect. She asks again, have you ever been married? Tai realizes Daniel is involved, and now the conversation becomes about Daniel. Daniel is interfering. Daniel wants to create trouble. Daniel does not understand Tai's family. Daniel does not understand how relationships and family expectations can work in Nigeria. And Tai may have a legitimate point buried somewhere inside that defense. Family expectations can be complicated. Legal marriage, religious marriage, family recognition, informal separation, and emotional separation are not always treated exactly the same by everyone involved. Two people can believe a relationship is over long before paperwork reflects it. Families can continue referring to people as husband and wife after the couple themselves have emotionally separated. That context matters. But here is where Tai loses me. Context should follow the answer. It should not replace the answer. If Lisa asks, are you married? The first answer should not be a 5-minute explanation of culture, family, Daniel's motives, and how complicated everything is. Answer the question. Then explain. Because every extra layer Tai adds before giving Lisa that direct answer makes her feel like he is trying to soften something she is not going to like. Daniel sees it too. And he asks the question that cuts right through Tai's defense. If this woman is only part of some complicated old history, why did Lisa never hear about her? Tai goes quiet. That silence becomes a problem. Eventually, Tai acknowledges that the woman exists. Now, Daniel has not proven everything, but he has proven enough. The person was not invented. Lisa was missing a major piece of Tai's history. Tai tells her the relationship was complicated. That word does not calm Lisa down. If anything, it makes her more suspicious. Because complicated usually means there is an explanation coming that probably should have been given much earlier. Lisa asks the obvious question. Is she your wife? And once again, Tai does not immediately say no. He starts explaining how long ago the relationship became unhappy. He talks about how they stopped functioning like a couple.
He talks about family.
He talks about separation. And Lisa keeps waiting for one thing: a direct answer. Then Daniel adds the detail that changes the entire discussion. According to what he was told, people around Ty still refer to this woman as his wife. Now, that does not automatically mean Ty is currently living as a married man with her. It does not automatically prove they are romantically involved. It does not tell Lisa what the legal status is. But it raises the most important question Daniel has asked so far. The issue is no longer whether Ty and this woman used to be together. The issue is whether they ever actually stopped being married. Lisa asks Ty directly, "Are you legally married right now?" And Ty gives the answer that almost guarantees this conversation is going to explode. There are paperwork issues. Paperwork issues. That is not the same thing as no. Lisa notices immediately. She asks again. Ty says the marriage was basically over before he met Lisa. And Lisa responds with a sentence that exposes the problem perfectly. Basically over is not divorced. That is the conflict right there. Ty's argument is emotional. Lisa's question is factual. Ty is saying, the relationship was over to me. Lisa is asking, were you still married? Those are not the same question. And Ty keeps answering the one that makes him look better. To be fair, Ty's explanation could still make sense. Maybe he and this woman separated emotionally a long time ago. Maybe they stopped living like husband and wife. Maybe both families knew the relationship had effectively ended. Maybe unfinished paperwork was simply something Ty had not handled yet. People absolutely stay legally married after relationships have ended. That does happen. But Lisa's problem is not simply that Ty might still technically be married. Her bigger problem is that he apparently decided she did not need to know. And this is where the story moves away from cheating and into something deeper. Consent inside a relationship is not only about physical intimacy. It is also about having enough truthful information to decide what you are agreeing to emotionally. Maybe Lisa would have dated Ty anyway. That is what makes the secrecy worse. Imagine Ty telling her early on, I need you to know something. I was married. The relationship ended a long time ago, but the formal divorce is not finished. Lisa might have accepted that. She might have asked questions. She might have waited. She might have decided it was too complicated. The point is that she would have been allowed to decide. But if Ty withheld it because he was worried Lisa might walk away, then he made that decision for her. That is why people feel manipulated by secrets even when the secret itself might have been forgivable. Ty could say, I did not tell you, because it sounds worse than it actually is. Lisa could answer, then you did not trust me to decide what it meant. And that is a much harder accusation to defend. Then Daniel makes things even messier. He says the woman may not consider the marriage finished in the same way Ty does. Now we have a serious contradiction. If Ty says, we both knew it was over years ago, that is one situation. If the woman says, no, I still considered us married, that is completely different. Because now there are two people describing the same relationship in incompatible ways. Lisa wants to speak to the woman.
Ty does not want that.
And his resistance instantly becomes another red flag for Lisa. Ty says contacting her will create family drama. He says the situation is sensitive. He says Lisa does not understand the complications. Again, that could be true. There may be real reasons why bringing another person into the confrontation creates chaos. But Ty is asking Lisa to accept another explanation instead of verifying it. And Lisa is done doing that. She asks him the obvious question. If there is nothing to hide, why are you so worried about me talking to her? That is where I think audience reaction would split hard. Some viewers would say Ty's resistance is the biggest warning sign yet. If his version is accurate, why would he care if Lisa hears the same thing from someone else? Other viewers would say Lisa contacting a woman from Ty's past could cross a line, especially if that woman never asked to be pulled into Ty's current relationship. And both sides have a point. But Ty created the environment where Lisa feels verification is necessary. That matters. You cannot withhold major information and then demand the same level of blind trust you had before the information came out. Once trust is damaged, transparency has to increase, not decrease. Then Lisa does something that keeps this from becoming a simple Daniel versus Ty story. She turns on Daniel too. She asks why he cared enough to keep digging. Why was he talking to people connected to Ty? Why did he keep checking? Why is he so invested? And this is where Daniel's role becomes uncomfortable. Because even if he is right about some of Ty's secrecy, Lisa is also right to question him. Daniel says somebody had to tell her.
Fine.
But would Daniel be doing all of this for someone he had zero emotional connection to? Probably not. Lisa calls him out. Maybe he did want to protect her. Maybe part of him also wanted Ty to fail. Those motives can exist together. Daniel finally admits that he still cares what happens to Lisa. And strangely, that makes him sound more believable. Because pretending he feels nothing would sound fake. He cares. That does not mean Lisa owes him anything. It does not mean Daniel deserves another chance. It simply means his involvement is not emotionally neutral. And then something happens that takes away Ty's easiest defense. Lisa gets communication connected to the other woman. The message is short. Ask Ty why he is telling people he is single. And now the energy changes completely. Until that moment, Ty could make Daniel the entire problem. Daniel is jealous. Daniel misunderstood. Daniel is manipulating Lisa. Daniel wants to destroy the relationship. But now Daniel is no longer the only person challenging Ty's version. Lisa asks Ty whether he knew this woman still considered them married. Ty finally admits that the formal side of the separation was never fully resolved. He insists there has been no romantic relationship with her for a long time. And I think this is where Ty becomes frustrated because he feels Lisa is accusing him of having two relationships at once. But Lisa makes a critical distinction. She is not necessarily accusing Ty of loving two women. She is accusing him of allowing her to believe he was completely free when his situation was much more complicated. That is the heart of this entire story. This does not need to become a cheating scandal for Lisa to feel betrayed. Betrayal can happen when someone controls the truth. If you let somebody build a future with you while hiding a legal marriage, an unresolved separation, or important ongoing contact, the other person can feel deceived even if there was never a physical affair. And Daniel is not finished. He says he has reason to believe Ty continued communicating with the woman while he was dating Lisa. Now Lisa asks the exact question she should ask. Were those messages romantic? Daniel says he cannot prove that. Good. Because continued contact is not proof of cheating. Former spouses communicate all the time. There can be financial responsibilities, family obligations, legal issues, shared property, mutual relatives, practical problems. Ty says that is exactly why they remained in contact. And if that were the only issue, his explanation would be completely reasonable. But nothing is isolated anymore. That is Ty's real problem. The marriage was not fully disclosed. The legal status is unclear. The woman was never properly explained. Communication continued. The timeline appears inconsistent. Ty does not want Lisa contacting her. And Daniel somehow had information about all of this before Lisa did. At some point, the issue stops being one suspicious detail. It becomes accumulation. One thing can be misunderstood. Two things can be coincidence. But once Lisa has 5 or 6 unanswered questions pointing in the same direction, every explanation has to work much harder. That is why Ty can answer each individual concern and still fail to restore trust. The audience would probably be split into several camps here. Some fans would absolutely credit Daniel. They would say, his motives do not matter. Lisa needed the information. Others would say Daniel crossed a boundary and became way too involved in investigating Lisa's relationship. Another group would sympathize with Ty. They might say relationships sometimes end emotionally years before the legal process catches up, and Ty may have genuinely viewed himself as single. Then there would be viewers who reject that completely. They would argue that if you are still legally connected to another person, especially if that person may still see herself as your wife, your new partner deserves to know immediately. And Lisa would get criticism too. Some viewers might say she ignored warning signs because she wanted the relationship with Ty to work. But I think that criticism is a little too easy. A red flag is obvious only after you know what was pointing toward. Ty avoiding one video call does not mean wife. A vague answer about family does not mean secret marriage. An unavailable evening does not mean double life. Those moments only become suspicious after Daniel gives Lisa a possible explanation connecting them. That is why Lisa's next decision is probably the strongest thing she does. She does not choose Daniel. She does not immediately forgive Ty. She decides to verify everything herself. That completely changes the power dynamic. Daniel cannot control the conclusion. Ty cannot control the conclusion. Lisa tells both of them, in effect, I will decide what I believe after I confirm what is true. And that is exactly what she needs to do. Because until now, Lisa has been trapped between two competing stories. Daniel says Ty is hiding a marriage. Ty says Daniel is twisting a complicated separation. If Lisa blindly chooses either man, she is still letting somebody else define reality for her. Independent verification takes that power back.
Ty does not like it.
He tells Lisa that if she believes Daniel enough to investigate him, maybe their relationship never had enough trust to begin with. That sounds dramatic, but it does not hold up very well. Trust is not refusing to verify serious information. Trust is built on having the information voluntarily in the first place. Ty is not asking Lisa to trust him before anything happened. He is asking her to trust his explanation after learning he withheld something major. Those are completely different situations. Lisa asks for documentation. Show her exactly where the marriage stands. If there was a divorce, show that. If the process is unfinished, say that clearly. If there was only a separation, explain the timeline. And every time Ty becomes defensive about those questions, he accidentally reinforces Lisa's fear. That does not prove he is lying, but it does make her feel like clarity has to be dragged out of him. And that pattern matters more than any single document. Then Lisa puts Daniel under the same pressure. She asks him a very uncomfortable question. If Ty disappeared tomorrow, what would you want from me? That question exposes the emotional triangle immediately. Daniel says he did not do this because he expects Lisa to come running back to him. Lisa does not fully believe him. And honestly, I would not fully believe that either. Daniel may not have a calculated plan to get Lisa back, but that does not mean he feels nothing about the possibility. Eventually, he admits he still cares about her. That is probably the most honest answer he could give. He cares what happens. He does not trust Ty. He may still have unresolved feelings. And yes, he may feel some satisfaction if his suspicions about Ty are validated. That does not automatically invalidate the information. It just means Daniel is not a neutral investigator. Then Lisa does the thing Ty clearly wanted to avoid. She contacts the woman directly. And the response creates an entirely new problem. The woman knows who Lisa is. That is huge. Think about the imbalance there. Lisa did not even know this woman existed. But this woman already knows Lisa. That means information was flowing in one direction. People around Ty's past apparently knew about his present. Lisa did not know about his past. That is exactly the kind of imbalance that destroys trust. Now Lisa has a dozen new questions. When did this woman learn about her? What did Ty tell her? Did he call Lisa a friend? Did he admit they were serious? Did his family know? Did Ty tell everyone else a different version of the relationship? Why was Lisa the person with the least information? And then the woman sends the message that pushes the story into another level. There are things Ty hasn't told you. Now Lisa's question is not simply, are you still married? It becomes, what else don't I know? And once somebody reaches that point in a relationship, restoring trust becomes incredibly difficult. Because even if Ty produces proof tomorrow that the marriage has been emotionally dead for years, Lisa still has to deal with the fact that she discovered it from somebody else. Even if he proves there was no cheating, the secrecy remains. Even if he explains every message, the lack of disclosure remains. And the timing becomes extremely important. Ty may eventually say, I was going to tell you. That sounds comforting until you ask the next question. When? Before Lisa became more emotionally invested? Before major plans? Before money became involved? Before families were connected? Before she changed her life? At what point does I was waiting for the right time become I was waiting until you were too invested to easily walk away? That is a very uncomfortable question. And I think that may become the real long-term issue between Lisa and Ty. Before Daniel showed up, Ty controlled the story of his past. Lisa knew whatever Ty decided was relevant. After Daniel's reveal, that control is gone. Now Lisa is verifying dates, checking information, talking to another source, asking for proof. Ty becomes the one waiting for Lisa to decide what she believes. And in a strange way, he is now experiencing the uncertainty Lisa has been living with. But this is where the future of the relationship becomes much more interesting than the initial bombshell. Even if Lisa confirms that Ty and this woman have been separated for years, the relationship is not automatically fixed. Because legal status is only one question. The bigger question is what Ty does when he has information that might upset Lisa. Does he tell her voluntarily? Or does he decide for her that she does not need to know yet? That is the behavioral pattern I would watch. Because if Ty's instinct is to minimize first, avoid the conversation, and explain only after confrontation, Lisa is going to become more suspicious over time. Then she starts checking everything. He becomes defensive. Lisa sees the defensiveness and believes she needs to check even more. Ty feels controlled. Lisa feels lied to. And eventually neither person remembers what trust felt like before they started investigating each other. That cycle can destroy the relationship even if the original marriage issue turns out to be far less dramatic than Daniel first suggested. Daniel creates another long-term complication too. If Lisa and Tai stay together, Daniel now becomes the person who exposed information Tai never gave Lisa. Tai may resent him permanently. Lisa may compare every future inconsistency to the moment Daniel was partially proven right. Daniel may continue feeling justified in watching Tai. And suddenly Lisa's relationship has 3 emotional participants even if only 2 people are technically together. That is not sustainable. My prediction is Lisa does not make an immediate permanent decision. I think she slows everything down. Plans pause. Big commitments pause. Any conversation about a future together gets put on hold until she understands exactly what happened. And honestly, that would be the smartest move. If Tai can produce a clean timeline, show that the relationship ended long ago, explain the legal situation, and give Lisa a believable reason for continued contact, then this may ultimately become a story about terrible disclosure rather than romantic betrayal. But for Tai to recover, he has to stop arguing that Lisa should not care. That is where he keeps making the situation worse. If his defense remains, the relationship was basically finished, so I did not think it mattered. Lisa is going to hear something very different. She's going to hear, I decided what information was important enough for you to know. That is the exact behavior she is already angry about. The woman's version is going to matter enormously. If she tells Lisa, yes, Tai and I have been separated for years. There was nothing romantic happening. The legal side just never got finished. Tai suddenly becomes much more believable. He still has a serious honesty problem with Lisa, but the double-life suspicion becomes much weaker. If the woman tells Lisa something completely different, if she says there was never a clear separation, communication remained romantic, or Tai continued presenting himself as her husband, then the entire story changes. Now we are not talking about delayed disclosure. We are talking about possible deception. And there is one more possibility that could become the biggest twist of all. What if everyone is technically telling part of the truth? Tai may define the relationship ending from the day he emotionally checked out. The woman may define it from the day they physically separated. Family may define it from the point they stopped appearing together. Legal records may show something else. And Lisa may have been given the version of the timeline that made Tai look most available. That is why dates matter so much. Because if Tai keeps changing which event counts as the real ending, Lisa may start believing he is not lying about one specific date. He is selecting the most convenient definition. And that brings us back to the biggest issue. The strongest part of the story is not Daniel saying Tai may have a wife. The strongest part is Lisa slowly realizing that the headline may not even be the worst thing. The worst thing may be that she was never given enough information to decide whether she was comfortable entering this relationship in the first place.
Tai can explain the marriage.
He can explain the paperwork. He can explain the woman. He can explain the messages.
He can explain the timeline.
But every explanation still has to answer one question. Why did Lisa have to find out from Daniel? That question is not going away. And if Tai cannot answer it without blaming Daniel, blaming culture, blaming paperwork, or blaming Lisa for asking questions, then the marriage status may eventually become the smaller problem. Because Lisa can potentially forgive a complicated past. She can potentially forgive unfinished legal business. She can potentially forgive contact with a former spouse when legitimate responsibilities exist. What is much harder to forgive is discovering that almost everyone connected to your partner's past seemed to have more information than you did. Once that happens, every future conversation changes. Every time Tai says, that is everything, Lisa may wonder if it really is. Every time he says, you do not need to worry, she may remember that she was told not to worry before. And that is a brutal foundation for any relationship. So, I think the audience is going to end up divided around 3 questions. Did Daniel expose Tai because Lisa genuinely deserved the truth, or was part of him hoping this revelation would destroy her relationship? Can Tai reasonably claim that his marriage was over if the legal status, the family perception, and possibly the other woman's understanding were never fully resolved? And even if Tai never physically cheated on Lisa, is hiding an unresolved marriage already enough of a betrayal for her to walk away? Because Tai may eventually explain every technical detail. The much harder thing to explain is why Lisa had to hear the truth from Daniel first. This fictional story is for entertainment purposes.